It's Greg Sankey versus the SEC, why he disagrees with many of his member schools.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. We got a loaded show today. I was over at in Baton Rouge at LSU camp yesterday. We'll give you some of those takeaways coming up in segment 3. Segment 2, Brent Venables gets an extension, leaving many asking why. We'll discuss that in segment 2. And also Bama getting closer to a quarterback decision. Almost no secret at this point, but we'll touch on that as well. But we got to start with Greg Sankey versus the SEC. This court ruling that came down from Colorado a couple of weeks ago saying that players could return, 2022 class of 2022 players could come back for a 5th year because they passed the, 5 years to play 5 seasons rule. This judge in Colorado said, what about those guys who just graduated and only played 4 years? They should get an extra year. Well, that was the first chapter of this. And now the second chapter is some of those players currently in NFL camps or were with NFL camps during training camp and all that, guys who maybe got drafted late or went undrafted, they are looking for an option to return back to school if they end up getting cut by those NFL teams here in the next couple of weeks. That's one wrinkle. And then another wrinkle of, obviously, we know about some of those basketball players that played overseas wanting to come back and play college football, or college basketball, rather. So Greg Sankey speaking out. Sankey speaking out about the latest trend of pro athletes who are finding ways to return to college and be student athletes. In an affidavit filed last week, Greg Sankey asked Judge Ronald Johnson in East Baton Rouge Parish of Louisiana to uphold NCAA rules and not allow athletes who have signed a professional contract to be eligible to compete at the college level. According to a Louisiana court affidavit, Sankey believes the return of college athletes after going pro fuels disruption and undermines the principles of college sports. Here was his quote. These rules are grounded in the principle that athletics are an integral part of the academic experience. The rules align the time permitted for college athletics with the pursuit of an undergrad education and further the important purpose of preserving opportunities for future student athletes to participate in college sports. Sankey wrote this in response to a former St. John's player named R.J. Lewis, who filed a lawsuit as he's looking to return to college and wants to play at LSU. Well, Sankey's affidavit is for the case involving him, who signed a 2-way NBA contract with the Utah Jazz and was traded to the Boston Celtics. He played in 3 preseason games for the Celtics, but missed the G League season due to injury. Luis has committed to play for Will Wade and LSU. Now, his hearing is scheduled for Monday. According to ESPN, his attorneys say that ruling against their client would violate a Louisiana legal precedent that says associations may not arbitrarily allow the privilege to some and not to others. Very interesting how this is going to play out, citing the NCAA allowing players from European professional leagues to come over and play college basketball. Again, why is it okay for a guy from Germany or Lithuania who played pro ball there and got paid to come play college ball here, and yet a guy who played in the G League here isn't? Again, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's an interesting argument. And, of course, we know this isn't the first time Sankey has spoken out of this. We know with the Charles Bediako thing, when he was granted permission to return to school, he spoke out on that, saying, athletes who have not pursued a pro sports career but instead have maintained their commitment to the collegiate athletic model, those are the guys who should be eligible in playing. So, according to the story from ESPN, it's the latest case of college athletes looking to return to school. A more prominent case that's also been filed in the same courthouse consists of former athletes who are looking to return to school. 3 players in that case are former Ole Miss players, including Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris. We know Daquan Wright is currently with the Cleveland Browns, but if he doesn't make the roster, he wants to leave open the opportunity that he could go back to school, possibly even LSU, Tampa Bay Bucket, or Ole Miss, I should say there. Jack Pyburn, who's with the Tampa Bay Bucks, he played at LSU last year. He wants to clear a path that possibly he could leave the NFL, return to college football if he gets cut. So, and there's plenty of other guys in this mix. James Madison, linebacker, Trent Hendrick, Wyatt Williams from Ole Miss, SMU running back TJ Harden. So there's a long list of these guys. But like we said, previously the members of the 22 recruiting class who returned to college football took advantage of the extra year of eligibility were granted, by that district judge, Charlotte Sweeney. In that ruling, she had said those who didn't sign NFL contracts. Well, that's where it gets into a debate. If a guy going undrafted, played with a team in training camp and gets cut, should he have the option to come back to school? And then there's also an incoming ruling from Judge Brian Edwards out of Louisville that centers around that same 2022 high school recruit with the fifth-year eligibility ruling, and how the judge will rule will directly impact Kentucky's efforts in trying to add all SEC Mizzou forward Mark Mitchell. So, again, this is a laundry list of different players in football and basketball in different states. And Greg Sankey is pushing back on all of them, saying, look, if you played any semblance of pro ball, you shouldn't be able to go back to college. And I somewhat agree. I mean, our guy Matt Moscona over at Locked On LSU, he tweeted this out the other day. He's like, the adults are what are making this thing difficult. Like, we have some rules. The NCAA has a guideline of rules, and yet to make our teams better, coaches and fans getting behind it want to see these guys be able to come back to school or go to college. And it's skirting the rules of what we have here, right? I mean, what should have happened when they made the decision to move into, you get 5 seasons to play 5 or 5 years to play 5 seasons starting this coming year. Anybody wants to go, what about the class of 2022? Tough. Life is tough sometimes. That should be the answer. But instead of taking that, we're running the judges and going, oh, let's get an overturn. Let's get a ruling here. And that's why we have absolute madness in college football. That's why people want to see the Protect College Sports Act passed, so we have law and ruling and say, this is this. You can't run to a judge to get eligibility back. It's just insanity. All right, we'll certainly keep track of that. We'll see what happens. Will be craziness if we see guys leave an NFL training camp and end up back playing in college this year. Going to be nuts. All right, real quick, over at Alabama, Chris Lowe, SEC insider, sharing his thoughts on the expected outcome of the Alabama quarterback competition. He turned some heads Thursday morning, posting on X that he expects Kalen DeBoer to name Keelon Russell the Alabama starting quarterback early next week. Russell, in his second year with the program, been competing with Austin Mack for that starting job. And look, not the biggest secret in the world. Alabama did hold their second scrimmage of the preseason on Thursday morning. Kalen DeBoer told media members after the practice he and his staff will take the weekend to break down the ongoing quarterback battle between Russell and Mack, but sources continue to tell On3 Russell has the edge over Mack. In a 90-play scrimmage, Russell ran out with the first team first to open the practice, according to sources. In a second season in Tuscaloosa, sources saying Russell was solid in the scrimmage, was only a thud. But the former 5-star recruit did not have to overdo it, but his ability to escape the pocket and make plays flashed once again. So we expect that'll come early next week. Now, ECU head coach Blake Harrell was speaking with the media yesterday, and he was asked about the decision on who's going to start for Alabama in week 1. He said, quote, I would imagine we would see both guys. Said that on Thursday. And while preseason camp has allowed DeBoer and Grubb to evaluate players, Harrell noted it's not the same as a live game scenario. He said, quote, I think the quarterback position is so hard to simulate in practice. You never get your butt kicked in practice. Nobody touches you. They don't come near you. You don't get hit. All of a sudden you get in a game and you got a guy laying on top of you. You're going to find out a little bit about that guy. So interesting perspective. The ECU coach is saying we're preparing for both guys. And honestly, maybe they may play both. They may name Keelon Russell the starter, but who knows? Maybe Alabama gets up by a couple scores in the first half. Maybe DeBoer and Grubb say, good opportunity to put on Austin Mack, see what we have in him. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But, yeah, again, not a big surprise, but we expect Keelon Russell will be named the Alabama starting quarterback next week. When he does, we'll do a show talking about it. But, I've said this for weeks. Go look at the 24/7 Sports rankings on recruits that Alabama has had. Hands down, the highest ranked recruit Alabama has ever had, if you believe in recruiting rankings, is Keelon Russell. Higher than Bryce Young, higher than Cyrus Kwanjo, higher than every big-time recruit Alabama's ever had. Keelon Russell's ahead of him. So if you believe in those rankings, Keelon Russell should be starting. I can't imagine a world where one of the highest-ranked recruits to ever come through Tuscaloosa is going to ride the pine a second year in a row. Like, what are we doing here? He's that great of a talent. Put his butt on the field. Let's see what he can do. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Brent Venables gets an extension. Many are asking why. We'll discuss that coming up next. Hey guys, since 1986, The Game has been creating classic college hats that fans are proud to wear, whether you're an alumnus, current student, season ticket holder, or simply someone who never misses a game, a great college hat is more than just apparel. It's a way to represent your school wherever you go. And this year, the Game celebrating its 40th anniversary by giving fans a chance to save on some of their most iconic college hats. If you've been thinking about replacing an old favorite or adding a new one to your collection, now is the perfect time. Man, it's just, it's the cool thing to do. Represent your school, represent your brand. Wear some of those old school hats you wore in the 90s. You see some of them behind me over my shoulder. Those are hats from the Game. When you see them, you know them. I love the ones where, it's just like the one word of the teams, or whether it's Tigers or, Gamecocks or whatever it is, you can get those right there at the Game. With hundreds of officially licensed college hats to choose from, you will find the perfect fit for game day and every day. Don't miss this chance to celebrate 40 years of the Game with 40% off your entire order. Visit thegamecaps.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's thegamecaps. Promo code LOCKEDON. Celebrate 40 years of the Game with 40% off. But don't wait. This anniversary offer will not last forever. Hey, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So the big news to break out on Thursday was Brent Venables, Oklahoma head coach, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension that puts him on a new 6-year contract that adds 2 years to his current deal and keeps Venables in Norman through the 2031 season. The deal is worth an average of $10.5 million per year, according to Pete Thamel. Venables has been at Oklahoma since 2022, led the Sooners to the college football playoff last year, despite John Mateer playing through that injured thumb. And in those 4 seasons, a record of 32-20. Now, his first and third seasons came out to a 6-7 record. Not the greatest. However, he has 2 10-win seasons in 23 and 25, and the team finished top 10 in last year's coaches poll. Roger Denny, the athletic director, saying, "I believe strongly in Coach Venables and the culture he's built and the structure we have in place around our program. Simply isn't a better ambassador for OU football than Brent Venables." Brent Venables coming out saying it's truly an honor or a privilege to serve as the head coach at Oklahoma. None of this would be possible without the tremendous investment, hard work, and dedication of our players, coaches, and staff. Now, look, there's optimism for Venables heading into year 5. The Sooners are loaded. You're going to have one of the best defenses in the country, and John Mateer appears to be back to 100%. So Sooners are loaded. They're going to be tested very quickly, right? They go to the Big House, take on Michigan in week 2. They get Red River, they get Georgia. I mean, it is a tough schedule. But even though Brent Venables still had 4 years left on his contract, the question is, why now? Roger Denny said it felt like the right time to extend him. Roger Denny, by the way, is in his 7th month as OU's athletic director. I don't know if I'd be letting him make any decisions like this. Rassel, I'd be like, hey, can we talk about this? What? Hey, Roger, quick question. Why are we adding years to this guy's deal when we thought he was doing a pretty good job, great job last year? But I bring this up all the time. Like, why do ADs get duped on this? Mike Elko has a great year, and they add years to his deal. Kalen DeBoer wins a playoff game. They, extension for him. I just always say, like, these guys are already some of the highest paid coaches in all of sports. Can't we just say, hey, they're earning their paycheck? They're doing what they're supposed to do. When you gave that guy a massive contract when you hired him, or even some guys' cases already given him an extension, couldn't you just say, hey, you're doing a great job, keep it up, and if you keep winning, we'll add more, years or give an extension? But like, it just feels so rash to just run. Oh yeah, one great year. Oh, let's go extension. Again, what's the reason? This is why you have so many schools and teams out there playing these massive buyouts to coaches to fire them, because you added more years onto the deals when you could have just sat there and had them sit on the deal that they're currently on. But several factors Roger Denny brought up. He says stability is what we believe in. He said right now more than ever what we need, what our student athletes need is stability. He said we're not going to excel, but we invest in knowing that we've got the right person. That's what we do. When we do fall short, it's someone that we can lock our arms with and go figure it out. He said he believes if he's worried about the buyout and the possible failures of the program, then the deal is not worth signing in the first place. He said, we've seen what our team is capable of under Brent Venables' leadership, and that's what we're investing in. I don't need to see this season to know what we've got. Now, Venables joins an upper echelon of coaches making more than $10 million a year. Venables made 18 coaches in that range of annual salary, and Denny said, it will only continue to increase, giving him more of a reason to strike this deal now. Denny said he understands the risk of this extension, but also understands the flexibility this gives him and his staff for years to come. He said, now I know what that position is going to cost us for the foreseeable future. As I think about where I can make our other investments in the program, I'm not worried about the rapid increase in that line item this offseason. Yeah, Roger, it's great you've locked him in, but again, you're going to revisit this again. If Venables has an awesome year this year, let's say makes a deeper run in the playoff, you're going to maybe have to give another extension. Just because you gave an extension now doesn't mean Venables is locked in. You're never going to have to give him a pay raise again. That's not how this works. But Roger Denny's on the Venables buyout, which we won't find out what it is until it's approved by the board in September. He said, quote, we're in this place in our industry where literally the second we come out and demonstrate a commitment to a coach, everyone wants to know what the cost is to fire him. What are we doing? If that was our mindset, we wouldn't be signing this contract. Well, newsflash, Roger, guys are getting bought out and fired all the time across college sports. It happened last year with James Franklin, with Brian Kelly, with Billy Napier. I mean, the list goes on and on. Every year it's happening. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's the reality of college sports. So to ignore that and act like that's not a real thing, hey, man, might want to do a little studying around college sports. But as read a couple tweets here, Jesse Simonton tweeted, Venables checked in as our tier 4 head coach behind at least 35 other choices in Chris Vanini's recent athletic piece. So Venables in that athletic piece, tier 4 coach, 35 other coaches ahead of him. He was 28th in Tom Fornelli's rankings at CBS Sports. He said Oklahoma's bidding against itself for no reason. Dan Walken tweeted, I remain baffled why Oklahoma has gone all in contractually here. The question is, why not let this season play out first? What's the risk if Venables has a great season and you didn't add more years to his deal? Do you think you'd have to pay more down the road? Do you think someone's going to come swoop in and steal him? And here's just a couple of tweets I read from folks out there. Who were they competing against? There's no reason that they couldn't have done that after this season. The fans will want him axed after he goes 7-5 this year. Another one said just a really puzzling decision that ADs keep making. No one is coming after him. If they do, let him leave. He's not one of these coaches we can't let leave. Another one said, was he going to not coach this season without a new deal? And then lastly, one guy pointing out 1-3 against Texas, made one playoff and lost at home after he had a 17-0 lead. And it's not like other teams were beating down the door to sign him. So, I don't want to make this a poo-poo on Brent Venables. I like Brent Venables. I think he's a good coach. I think he's going to do a good job. It just, my gripe is more with these ADs and school presidents that somehow get duped by these agents constantly about, hey, you like our guy? Better pay our guy. Needs a raise. Why? Let him earn the current massive contract he currently has. Let him continue to do that. And when the time is up for an extension or renewal or whatever, we'll discuss that. So anyway, all right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday games. Whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league, every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. Of course, there are certain players where every at bat feels like something big could happen. That's what makes daily dingers fun. You get to back the player you think is ready to go deep that day. So are you ready to play your game today? Join the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run. Play ball and swing for the fences at FanDuel, an official partner of MLB. Chris Gordy here, coming to you from the campus of LSU, as we got to see a little bit of LSU's practice on Thursday and some of the big takeaways. Sam Leavitt looks healthy. He is moving around. The arm looks great. The feet look great. Sam Leavitt is a full go, and LSU fans should be absolutely excited to see what this kid is going to look like. Obviously, we know what his potential is. We saw it 2 years ago at Arizona State, and now that he's fully healthy with Lane Kiffin calling the plays and Charlie Weiss running this offense, the potential is massive. But one of the big stars that is absolutely set for a monster year for LSU as long as he stays healthy is tight end Tre'Dez Green. I don't even want to call him tight end because they're moving him around all over the place. He can play wide receiver, he can play tight end. Tre'Dez Green is going to have a monster year. We know what a mismatch he is in the red zone. Lane Kiffin's not stupid. He's going to get this guy the football a ton. Other thing to watch is LSU's running backs. We don't know who is going to be that lead back. Dylan Jones is a guy who's made a move. We know Harlan Berry is a guy that they covet a lot. So going to be very interested to see what the run game looks like. As we know, the run game was very good under Lane and his crew when they were at Ole Miss the last couple of years. So a lot of eyes on the offense, and then particularly the defense. When you talk about one of the best cover corners out there, wearing number 5 now in DJ Pickett. And he certainly is a guy that all eyes are going to be on him, especially even more so wearing that number 5 now with the whole Jaden Daniels drama from a couple of weeks ago. But going to be really interested to see what this LSU team can do. Obviously, high expectations in Baton Rouge. They spent a ton on this team through the transfer portal. And now, can Lane get this team to the playoffs? 10-2 would get it done, but it's a brutal schedule. We're going to keep an eye on LSU and see what they could do. Coach, your teams have had some unique touchdown celebrations over the years on the sideline. Last year, dunking on the basketball goals. That's something you just kind of let the guys decide what's going to be the fun thing this year?
No, I just kind of over years have thought of things and tried them in spring and stuff, and just kind of way outside the box things that just create. And there's a plan when we go to places that are specific for those places, and sometimes I feel like a place needs to create an identity, create a national interest from recruits around the country and the way people see it. So sometimes they come in and we do some things, and then obviously the offense, when it's working like it has, works into that, and you have a unique product so that you can fill a stadium and you can get people to come to the games and have record crowds and those things and get national recruits to come. So all that stuff goes into that. It's all one of the things that is really thought out of. Sometimes we just fall into some things around here or over time, but those have been really thought out.
Just a few more notes on LSU, just kind of takeaways. One, Sam Levitt kind of developing that chemistry with some of his pass catchers, Malachi Thomas. But the big one is Trey Wilson, the former speedster from Florida who is now at LSU. Eugene Wilson in the on the depth chart, but goes by Trey Wilson. And he and Levitt already developing some chemistry with one another. So we'll be interested to see what that connection is. We know Winnie Watkins going for Ole Miss is a big going to be a big piece of the passing game. Chase Brown and others. So anyway, going to be interesting to see that chemistry with Trey Wilson and how much he helps in opening up this passing game for LSU. All right, a few other quick hitters from around the SEC before we call the show over at Texas. Edge rusher Colin Simmons talking with the media yesterday and said he believes the biggest strength of the Longhorns defense this season is not the talent, it's not the roster, it's not the depth. For the 20-year-old, he says the difference is their defensive coordinator, Colin Simmons said. That, of course, is Will Muschamp. Simmons describing Muschamp as someone who consistently sets the tone in meetings and practices, brings an aggressive approach that has stood out compared to what Simmons experienced previously. He said, quote, "I feel like the coaches set the tone, and I feel like Muschamp comes in each and every day and sets the tone. He does a great job doing that." He said, "This is my first year seeing this type of tone, aggressive. You're going to be on your feet. You're going to be 10 toes down on your feet. Muschamp is going to make sure you know what you got before you leave that meeting." And of course, the change at DC could have a big impact on Simmons statistically. He's already had 6 forced fumbles, 21 sacks during his first 2 years at Texas. Last season, he led the SEC with 12 sacks. Simmons needs 14 sacks this season to surpass Will Anderson Jr.'s SEC career record of 34.5. Now, Will Anderson reached at least 14 sacks in a season when he recorded 17.5 in 2021. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that Colin Simmons can reach that. He's going to need a monster year. He's going to have to stay healthy, but certainly he has the talent to do it. And Muschamp, a history of generating pressure in Austin. Last go around when he was there at Texas, his first run with the Longhorns, 2008 to 2010. Brian Arakpo and Sergio Kindle accumulated 11 and 10 sacks respectively in 2008. So Colin Simmons expected to eat for Texas off that edge again this year. We'll see what he does. Over at Auburn, they held their second scrimmage, garnered some more positive attention from Alex Golesh than the one last week. After praising his defensive improvements, Golesh also highlighted his offense, which ran 100 total plays inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. Golesh saying offensively, there were some explosives, some long drives, which was good for both sides to work, especially with the heat the way it was. And I'm talking offensive football here. He said with coaches off the field, truly long drives. And what does that really feel like to go 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 plays in a drive at the tempo that we play? There's nothing like actually doing it. You could try to replicate it all you want, but there's nothing really like actually doing it. And I thought there were some really, really positive things out there. So good to hear that from Auburn. If you're an Auburn fan, I know Alex Golesh wasn't happy with the first scrimmage results, says they were much better. Now, he did say they got to get some consistency going. He said like those little things where 3rd and 1 and get everybody lined up, 4th and 1, get everybody knows what's happening. You understand what's expected of you. Let's go. But again, that's all working out the kinks throughout fall camp and getting ready for the start of the season. And lastly, over Georgia, Kirby Smart says he's not worried about center Drew Bobo when it comes to his availability. He was asked for an update on Drew Bobo's health, and he missed the team's first scrimmage this past Saturday. Kirby said he practiced yesterday all day, took every rep. He's doing great. Of course, the Georgia center was voted a preseason first-team All-American this week. He's held out of Georgia scrimmage this past Saturday. If you remember last season, he injured his foot after returning to the starting lineup against Georgia Tech, which ultimately required Liz Frank surgery because of the foot injury. His status for the first few games of this season was always going to be kind of up in the air. And the Georgia center indicated at SEC Media Days he was feeling good going into fall camp. And so it will be interesting to see what happens there. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. And, of course, make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On SEC so you get all the latest episodes, and be with you guys all next week talking all the latest. Hopefully we'll get some clarity on those quarterback battles at Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, among others. And we'll bring that all to you next week. Now, on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 YouTube channel on college sports, and on audio, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin for your second listen. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC.